Berserk, a seinen manga series which started publication in 1989 by a man named Kentaro Miura. Famous for its incredible characterization and storytelling, the series has gone on to span numerous adaptations, a plethora of merchandise, and even spin-offs. You may be wondering, where did all of this start from, and how did Miura come up with this enormous and intricately designed series? Well, let's have a look together at the origins of Berserk. Our story begins in 1988 when Miura published a one-shot entitled Berserk, the Prototype. The story, whilst similar to the series which we know of today, differed almost completely from the later series and shows us a more, for lack of a better word, edgy story of revenge. Whilst the story of this precursor bears no relevance on the current series, it is interesting to see how Miura has used this one-shot as a stepping stone, as the one-shot has a lot of instances which would be used later in the main series. Guts is missing his eye and arm as usual. He's after those that did this to him. However, instead of having lost Casca or even his lover, Guts is after the apostles because they killed and ate his mother. We are shown this young woman who is saved by Guts from bandits. Instantly you can see a resemblance to Teresia from the first arc of the actual series, and you would be right in making that connection. The two share the same general storyline, but the woman also bears an uncanny similarity to Griffith with her white hair. When you compare one of the first appearances of Griffith with this girl, the resemblance seems even more apparent. The story for the one-shot quickly turns into what the first chapter of the actual manga became, which is to say, Guts hunts down the local apostle, wants to find the God Hand, and carries on with his quest for vengeance. Although we never get to see the God Hand in the one-shot, we do get to see them in the first arc of the original series, which shows Miura's first steps at evolving the manga in a much broader sense. When we first see the God Hand emerge, the astral world closes in around the Count's castle, and Miura turns the world literally upside down, taking a pretty clear inspiration from the works of M.C. Escher. It should also be said that the four members of the God Hand were all each named after four famous science fiction novels. Ubik by Philip K. Dick, Slan by A.E. Van Vogt, and Call Me Conrad by Roger Zelazny, and Destination Void by Frank Herbert. The appearances of these characters were inspired by the Hellraiser movie/book series. If you've seen the movies, you will easily be able to see the similarities. You might be thinking, what about Evil Dead 2 with Ash and the whole chainsaw arm and going back to a medieval setting thing? That must have been big for Berserk, right? Well, no actually. Miura came up with the idea for Berserk completely separately before he ever got a chance to even see the movie. In fact, Miura recounts in an interview that he was afraid that he might get sued for Guts being too alike to Ash. Thankfully, nothing ever came of this, but it's interesting to look back at. In addition, the Apostles are one of the more common antagonists of the series. The very first page of the manga depicts Guts sleeping with an Apostle so that he can kill it. Miura gets really creative when it comes to the designs of the Apostles, with inspiration being taken from some other amazing designers as well. H.R. Geiger springs to mind when opening the first page of the whole manga. After establishing the current state of the world, we then get to see a backstory for our main protagonist Guts, and we get the arc which essentially made Berserk the success that it is today, the Golden Age Ark. The theme of existentialism is a massive one for the series, and it is primarily introduced with the background of Guts' character. If you want to see more about existentialism in Berserk, then be sure to check out my other video as I go heavily into detail about it. Years after his childhood, Guts joins the Band of the Hawk after losing a wager battle with its leader Griffith. Griffith wanted Guts to join his band of mercenaries after seeing how proficient of one he was already. The designs for many of the armors and swords of the Golden Age Ark were initially moulded around a single pamphlet that Kentaro Miura had from the movie Excalibur. Miura said that by the time he was done with it, the pamphlet was completely ragged. In the story, Guts is told that Griffith's dream is to have his own kingdom. This introduces the other major theme of the series, dreams. Guts thinking about how all he needs is his sword, how he says he lives through his sword, and how he and his sword are almost one and the same. It harkens back to the samurai of the Edo period of Japan. By the way, a good manga to read if you enjoy any of Guts' monologues would be Vagabond. Griffith and the Band of the Hawk begin fighting Tudor, an enemy of Midland, for the sake of their king. One of their most decisive battles takes place at Daldry, the Impenetrable fortress. This structure is based off the quite real castle of Coca de Avila in Spain. After they win this battle, Guts realises that the Band of the Hawk isn't his calling and fights Griffith again for his right to leave. The fight is a single-stroke battle, once again another element seemingly taken right out of samurai films. Guts wins, leaves the Band of the Hawk, and Griffith is left defeated, who ends up imprisoned after sleeping with the princess of the kingdom. The Band of the Hawk is exiled and hunted for treason, with Casca now in the lead and in hiding. When Guts returns, the group rescue Griffith and leave, only for Griffith to go and find the egg of the King Bahelit. This summons the God Hand, who offer Griffith to sacrifice his comrades so that he can become one of them and achieve his dream. Before the eclipse and during the eclipse, Griffith is shown a vision of a castle that he wants to reach. This castle is actually based off of a real castle called the Alcazar of Segovia. Griffith then says yes and sacrifices all of his comrades to become Femto. The Conviction arc carries tons and tons of religious references in it. Catholicism, paganism, and atheism are the main significantly religious elements. But seemingly far more important and true to Guts' character is the sayings of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche and his lack of faith in religion. Nietzsche believed that religion was more often than not used as a shield by most to protect themselves from fear, and that religion promoted virtues of weakness and cowardice along with a slave mentality. Another idea coined by Nietzsche was the Übermensch, the idea of one who carves their own path and doesn't follow that herd mentality. Just saying this stuff aloud should be enough to bring up the imagery of the Conviction arc alone, and how Miura is using these ideologies very closely when it comes to Guts' characterization for the arc. At the end of the arc, the Kushan Empire also make their first appearance in the manga. The Kushan Empire was very much real, and the one in the series uses the real dynasty as a template. During the troll attack at Enoch Village, the church which everybody takes respite in is actually modelled after the church of San Martin de Tours. Whilst the Kushan Empire did appear in the Conviction arc, the leader of the Kushan Empire makes his first appearance in this arc. His name is Ganishka, but were you aware that his name is in reference to the actual leader of the Kushan dynasty during the 2nd century, whose name was Kanishka? Before his fight with Griffith, Ganishka throws himself into a man-made Bahelit so that he can gain more power. This transforms him into a massive monster which destroys Windham Castle. This monster is almost identical and obviously is in reference to Typhon. The story of Typhon in Greek mythology is that he tried to overthrow Zeus for the supremacy of the cosmos. The relevance of this to the plot of Berserk is actually very significant when considering Griffith in this arc has essentially become a godlike character. When Femto redirects Skull Knight's attack and kills Ganishka, the world transformation begins. The world transformation rebuilds the ancient kingdom that lay below the city of Windham. This kingdom is theorized to be the kingdom which once belonged to Skull Knight, and simply looking at it we can see that it is a heavily romanticized version of ancient Rome. This makes even more sense considering Geyserich, the man who people theorize Skull Knight to be, is based off of a real figure in history, who was king of the Vandals. Geyserich's most well-known feat was capturing Rome in the 5th century, and he also managed to defeat 2 major efforts by the Romans to overthrow him. After recreating this kingdom, the World Transformation Astral Blast also brings the God Hand into the world in 4 glorious 2-page spreads, each representing a different member of the God Hand. Slan's is obviously lust, Conrad's is pestilence and disease, Void's is just a brain for obvious reasons, And then the 2-page spread for Ubik is a large illustration with a big nod towards the Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. And that's where we are in the story now. The next arc of Berserk, the Fantasia arc, has about 40 episodes of manga, and apart from the sea god being extremely Lovecraftian, I don't really have as much to talk about when it comes to possible references. So that's pretty much going to be it for this video. I looked to fit as much into the video as I could without it being too much of a slog of information. If you like the video, then please subscribe for more, like the video yourself, share the video, comment on the video, favourite the video, and everything in between. This was the Origins of Berserk, the second of 3 big Berserk talk videos that I have planned. The first one, Existentialism and Trauma in Berserk, is available on YouTube, and the third will be coming next month. I want to thank you guys so much for the support that you've given. It really means a lot to me. If you've been following the channel, then you know that the first video did have a copyright fiasco, which was completely unnecessary. But it's all solved now, and I want to thank you guys so much because I wouldn't be able to do this one without your support, and it just means the world to me. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time. Coming up next, the future of Berserk.